So to test the circuit that we just built, we need to first plug it into the MyDAC, the breadboard in. Then you're going to need a USB cable. Connect that to the USB port on your computer. And you should see a blue light appear on the MyDAC. That means it's powered up. So after a moment, it takes a little moment for the power to kick on. What you should see is when you push the push button, a light should light up, and when you release it, the light should go off. So that means our first part of the circuit is working. Now, if it's not working, some things you can do. The MyDAC has a multimeter built into it, and these are the terminals. So if you want to measure voltage, you would connect to the common and to the voltage output. It says volt ohms on this side. So what I recommend, if you have an easy clip and you're going to measure voltages, plug the easy clip into the common, get a short jumper like this, clip it on, and just plug that into your ground connection. That way you can take your positive lead, which is over here, and you plug that into the volt ohm input, and now you can make measurements with one hand. So to make measurements, when you plug in the MyDAC, you'll probably see this window come up. And so if you click go, now this will only come up if you have the software for the MyDAC installed. So there's a guide for installing that software, so you need to go through that and get the software on your computer. So you want to go to Launch Instruments and Apps for this device. Click go. Now if this doesn't come up, you can always go to the menu, main menu, scroll down to National Instruments, expand it, and then scroll down till you see NI Elvis MX Instrument Launcher. It's right here on the menu. It'll bring up the same thing. So the instrument we're going to launch is the digital multimeter. So it looks like this, and you just click it, and it takes a moment to start up, and it comes up looking kind of like an actual multimeter. We're going to measure DC volts, and it says specify range. So we're going to, because we're measuring up to 5 volts, the 20 volt range is the right range for that. And then we click run. And now we should be able to make some measurements. So let's say your circuit isn't working. You push the push button, no light. The first thing you should always check is power. So this is the 5 volt line coming out. If I probe that point, right here I'm seeing 4.73 volts. So that's close to 5 volts. That's my 5 volt supply. And also make sure that the other one is at 0 volts. Of course, you won't see much of a change in the reading. Then you want to make sure it's making it over to your breadboard. 0 volts here and 5 volts there. The next thing to check is the actual power pin of the IC, which is pin 14. Make sure that has power. So most of the time, if you have a problem, you're going to find it in one of those places, the power pin. The next thing to check would be, is the push button. I'm going to have to lay this down. If you check the input pin 1, and make sure that when you push the push button, it should go down to 0 volts. If it's not, maybe you might want to check the resistor. So this is a pull-up resistor. Should be 5 volts on one side, and when you're not pushing the push button, it should be 5 volts on the other side. When you push the push button, it should go to 0 volts. Another thing this is a very common mistake, I probably should have mentioned this first. Check the diode. If you plug it in backwards, I just turn it around like this, the diode's facing the wrong way, it will not conduct current in that direction. So it's a diode. It only connects in one direction, so you've got to make sure it's placed the right way. And just to refresh your memory, look for the flat. There's a flat side to the package. It's a little hard to see here, but that is the one that marks the negative. That's the ones that point toward ground. Whoops, I went and plugged it in backwards, didn't I? So once you have that tested and working, it's time to add the AND gate and then eventually the counter. So I'm going to stop the multimeter and I'll just minimize it for now in case we need it later.